Welcome to How to Become a Production SQL Database Administrator. My name is Rafael. In the previous video, we went over the extended events, and I demonstrated to you how you could create a session using the wizard that we went through step by step and created an actual extended events with the various sessions, the events and actions and targets and predicates and so on. In this particular video, I'm going to show you that same step actually by how to using TSQL. So you obviously, as you know, that every time you have a front-end GUI, if you will, at the back end, you've got TSQL code running. And this time we're going to go through step by step through learning how to do it with TSQL. The great benefit of this is you can be extremely granular and you can control everything you want. So let's start. So when using TSQL to create an extended event, there are several steps to follow. Now, I've put steps in quotation mark because they may be more or less depending on what you're trying to do. So this is not all encompassing, but most of it is. So the first thing you want to do is execute the script to drop any existing sessions. Right now, my session is find problem queries. And if I go to sessions and refresh, I don't have any. But just to be on the safe side, to drop it from the sys event sessions, I'm going to execute this. The only thing you will need to do this is replace the session name right here and execute it. The next thing that you'll do is you'll actually create an event session. Now, before I do that, even though I'm going through step-by-step steps, now in all actuality, what you will be doing is you'll be running steps 1 through 5 simultaneously. So you'll be highlighting all this entire script and executing it. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just breaking it down so you have a visual understanding of what's going on. So at the same time, so this events are created. Then when you create the session, you add the various events. And events in this particular case is going to be this, the SQL statement completed. I want to know when it completes. Then I also want to capture what's called the action. And remember what the action is in comparable to SQL Profiler. Those are the columns that I want to capture. And these are the columns or the actions for the event. And then obviously we want to look at the predicate, which is the where clause or the filter. In this particular case, I've got 2 predicates. One is that I want the duration anything over a second, which is 1,000 millisecond. And I want to obviously only look at the host name, which is my local, excuse me, which is my local desktop. So, and then I want to add a target, and basically a target are the files where I want these data to be saved. And if you'll notice here, I've created a folder called a new folder, and there are my directories where the 2 metadata files will be dumped. And then obviously, optionally, you can save it into the memory here. So you can save it into the what's called the ring buffer. And that's fine also if you want to do this. And then the last step you'll do is actually you can either execute this and it will not start. Or if you want to start it immediately, then you'll utilize alter event session name on server with start state. So having said that now, so here I do not have a session. And as I said, so I've broken it down for just illustrative purposes, but in actuality, you'll run this in one swoop. And I'm going to do that. So I'm going to execute it. And now if I go to sessions and execute, you'll see that I have indeed that session created. And there are the packages that are created. So I'm just going to now generate a little activity by running this select statement against my database. And now actually I'm going to stop the event. So the stopping is alter event session name on server, state equals stop. So now remember this is green. As soon as I execute this, it should turn red, which it is. Now if it refresh it and it stopped. So I've captured this activity. I started it, I executed a query, and I stopped the event. One thing to note is that you can drop the session. This is the session. You can drop the session and it does not actually delete the files. The files are separate. These are the files that are kept, and I'll show you that if you want to drop it. But for our purposes, we'll continue. So now if you look at it, before I start it, let me look at a couple of things. If you want to view the data, the live data that was captured, right-click Start Session, which it did. and then watch live data. And if you go to here, you can go to here and watch the target. And there's the one that is created when we started it. As you can see, that was the actual statement created. Now you'll notice here that this is the data that I wanted: the name, the timestamp, the text, the username. One thing you'll notice, if I right-click here and go filter, I can actually filter even more if I want to by timeline, if I want to timeline it, or I can actually filter it by the fields that have been captured. But I'll leave it here the way it is. And so that's another way of looking at the data. Now, what I want to do with this script, obviously, is capture the data. Oops. Let me bring that back. So what I want to do now is I want to dump that data. So let me stop it first. Right click, stop, and create an analysis. So I'm going to just dump the data in a temp table, 2 rows. And now I'm going to insert that data into a temp table to see what we collected. And this script will be provided for you also. And here it is. So now we can actually see it in a table event that we're familiar with. So obviously we would have to filter this even more, because we want to look at the select statement right here and its properties. So here's the select statement, the text, whatever we talked about, the physical reads, the logical reads, and so on. And duration, obviously, we were looking at greater than 1 second, and that took a little longer than a second. And there's your client host, and so on. So this is how you use the TSQL in creating an event. Now, while this seems a little more complicated, it's relatively easy. I'm going to actually delete this. And what I'm going to do now is actually show you how to create the same event, if you will, using the wizard. So I would go right click, and we've gone through this before. New wizard. And I'm going to go fairly quickly. So let's just call it T for test, next, next. And again, I'm just going to be using anything, but it doesn't really matter. My whole point is that you can actually, and we'll just select randomly any actions that we wish, go next. If we want to filter, we can, but I'll leave it here. Go next, save it, direct it to the file. In this case, I'll go to and call it T. So now it's saved also. And now, before you finish it, also, you can script it. Just click on script, cancel. And now everything we just showed you, that I just showed you actually, is right here. And so you can see how easy it is. It's not something that I did randomly writing a tremendous amount of code. It's just something I ran the wizard and captured the data. And now, once I get more familiar with it, I can start modifying it. And there it is. So that's easy. Now you can obviously add the properties of starting the event, or terminating the event, or dropping the event, and you can copy paste these kind of SQL scripts against here. So then suddenly you'll be very similar to mine. Now here, obviously, if you wanted to add actions to an event or the target, different targets, then you can do that also. One thing I've given for you easy, which I hope you find beneficial, I certainly do, is I've given you some of these select statements here, and this will allow you to get familiar with the session. So if you select this, it'll show you what the sessions we have. Obviously, I've deleted the session, but these were the name of the sessions if you looked at it. Select the event session actions. It'll give you all the actions, the column names and their appropriate IDs. This one will give you a row for each event session, so you can get a tremendous amount of information. This one actually will give you a row for customizable columns. And I think I have a few more. And then this is a good one. This is a good one also, because if you have SQL traces on your current system and you want to find the equivalent you can. Now, obviously, I may not. Let me see if I had them or not. I don't believe I did. I think I copied a few more things. So let me. And so what I was saying is that view the extended event equivalent to SQL traces. If you had an SQL trace, this will give you the equivalent column number, trace number. For example, here, if you had the column SQL trace column, this will give you what it looks like for the extended events. I don't have any, unfortunately. I didn't create any, but you get the idea. So if you do have any SQL traces, compare it, and you can compare them. This will give you a comparison of the column names. And then this one, obviously, to get all the fields for all the events. And it gives you just information here. And I think that's the last script. So these are some of the beneficial scripts that you will do. And obviously, extended events is a huge topic, if you will, in that it does take a tremendous amount of learning, and it's a high learning curve. So I encourage you to continually change some of the actions, some of the predicates, create your own events from scratch. The more familiar you become, the better it will be for you to do performance issues. And what I would do, obviously, is as you progress through this I would highly encourage you to use the wizard. Constantly use the wizard to get familiar with it. And then once you're familiar with this, save the scripts so you recognize these scripts when you see them here, and then you can alter them here. So I think I'm going to leave it here, and we'll continue with the next video and when it comes. So my name is Raphael, and this is how to become a production SQL database administrator. See you in the next video.